How's it going, guys? Hugh Richardson from onlinebassguitar.com here. In this video, I want to answer another email subscriber question I got from Alvaro recently. So Alvaro wrote to me and said, my biggest struggle would be muting. That is when you move from one string to another and the previous one still sounds. I can't stop it. What advice can you give me? So Alvaro, thanks very much for your question. What I want to take you through is the process that I use for both hands when I'm muting. Now, personally, I found it a little bit strange when people talk about left hand muting or right hand muting, because it kind of assumes that they're separate things. Now, I know there is such thing as left hand muting technique and right hand muting technique, and we will look at both of those in this video. But ultimately, what I always think about muting as is it's a job that is split between two hands. So it's something that they're both jointly responsible for. And ultimately, we need both hands to work together to produce one really good muting technique. So keep this thought at the back of your head. It's going to become really important when we come back to it later on to tie everything together. But for the moment, we're going to start by looking at the plucking hand muting technique. So my plucking hand is my right hand here. Your plucking hand is just whichever hand you pluck the strings with. So the job that I assign this hand is to mute all the strings below the one that I'm playing. So if I'm playing the A string, the job of this hand will be to mute the E and the B string. If I'm playing the D string, it's responsible for the A, E, and B. If it's playing the G string at the top, then it does all the strings below it. And the way I make sure that it can mute these strings is by using a kind of modified floating thumb technique. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take this little bit of my thumb here, just this sort of outside edge, and anchor it on the string below the one I'm playing. So if I'm playing the open A string, it's just resting very lightly on the E string, and then this inside part of the thumb here is going to be resting on the B string. I'm not trying to put a lot of weight through the thumb. I'm not using it to try and stabilize this whole arm, because stability is really the job of my posture and also the strap. So it's not taking a lot of weight, it's just there for a bit of light contact, just to very gently anchor the thumb to the instrument. So at the moment, playing the open A string, and it's muting the E and the B. But whenever I move, basically I try and make sure that my whole hand moves as a unit. So if I wanted to move from the A string up to the D string, the thumb will go with it, like that. So my thumb is now resting on the A string, and that inside part down here, that lower bit, is doing the E and the B string. So it's going across all three, and it keeps them all muted. And if I'm playing on the low B string, or whatever your lowest string is, I tend to just rest it on the pickup a little bit here. So this is how I keep the lower strings muted, but the ones that are higher than the string I'm playing, the responsibility of muting these falls to my fretting hand. So I'm going to go back to playing my open A string as an example. To mute the D and the G, which are above the A, what I do is I take the fingers of my fretting hand and I rest these under parts of my fingers across those strings. So they're just rested on top. They're not pushing the strings down, because if they push them down, we get notes, and we don't want those. So they just rest on top to produce this kind of ghost note or dead note sound. Now what you'll notice here is that if I play the open A string, my fretting hand is muting all the strings above that string, and my plucking hand is muting all the strings below it. So the only string that can actually ring out is the one that I want to play. So this puts our technique in a really good position. But I mentioned at the start of this video that I like to try and use the two hands together. Now this is where this thought of splitting the muting work between the two hands really comes in. What I try and make sure is that my two hands are constantly moving in tandem like this. So if I'm playing an open A string with my plucking hand and I want to move up to the D string, this hand moves up like this and this hand moves down. So there's constantly this paired motion going on like this. So I'll show you really quickly. I'll start on the open A string, up to the D string, and can you see that movement? Up to the G string, D, A, E, B. So constantly the thumb is responsible for the muting on this hand, and on this hand it's the underside of the fingers that rest against the strings. And what you want to be aiming for is that the only string that can ring out is the one you're playing. This is where your technique is going to sound the cleanest. So good material that you can use to practice this. Of course, things that ascend the neck this way are going to be really, really good. So things like arpeggios or scales. But equally valid are things that ascend the neck this way. So again, you can run arpeggios or scales this way. Both are going to provide you with really good challenges. But to be honest, absolutely anything that you want to use is going to be a good practice material, because we want our muting to be good no matter what we're playing. So in a sense, it doesn't really matter what we practice. So hopefully you found this useful. If you have, make sure you leave your comments and thumbs up below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for more lessons. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you head over to onlinebassguitar.com to check out the courses and free lessons blog we've got there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in another lesson real soon. Take care.